All right, so I'm an economic geologist. I've been doing this for 30 odd years. I worked with, in 1997, I joined Rick Greuel as his mining analyst. 6 years later, went independent. I co-write Exploration Insights, which is a newsletter focused on minerals exploration and what Joe and I are buying, selling, and avoiding in the market. What I want to talk about today is what the dearth of discoveries that's been happening for quite a few years, and how I think that plays out, and why the junior mining sector, in my view, is the place to be right now, but very selectively. All right, so we're not finding enough deposits. This is clear. This is SNL data. This shows ounce discovered since 1990. And that little star off on the right-hand side is current production, global production, about 90 million ounces. And you can see there's about a 60 million ounce gap between what we're producing and what we're mining. The browner bars are actual reserves, and the yellow are estimated that haven't been reported yet. So even considering what's being found and drilled out right now, we are way behind. And then also shows what the gold exploration budget has been, which has been going down quite a bit. It's picked up this year, but in general it's been down. And even last year, or 2016, this only goes to 15, and 16, there's about 10 million ounces estimated to have been found. What that looks like in a picture is we are burning through one Carlin Trend a year. The Carlin Trend has produced about 85, 90 million ounces, which is a year's production. So everything produced up to this point from the Carlin Trend is going in a year. Now, it's taken 35 years to develop the deposits along the trend, and a capex to do that today would be over $30 billion. Again, just pointing to the fact that this is a major hurdle we've got to get over, and I don't think it happens. And this is Barrick and Newmont's production profile through 2040. And I've put a line there where we are right now, and you can see looking out, the production is forecast to decline for these two companies. And it's the same for almost every company. And it's important to consider that for a large deposit, it takes in the order of 10 to 20 million years from discovery to when this goes into production. So anything we find today, depending on size, location, that sort of thing, we're looking 10 to 20 years out before it ever gets into production. So the problem's not going to be fixed. And here's looking for a forecast going forward of replacement reserves. And again, you can see the red line, what production is projected, demand is projected to look like, and the yellow is forecast discovered ounces. And I think this is pretty optimistic as well. Same thing's happening in copper. This is the Bingham Copper Mine just outside of Salt Lake City. About 19 million tons of copper. We're burning through or producing 19 million tons a year. So again, we've got to find and put into production one Bingham Canyon a year to stay even. And it's not happening. Again, another 10 to 20 years to find from discovery to production. A little chart showing what projected supply is versus demand. And the current pipeline, this is the fewest projects in the pipeline of this century. And you can see that again. It's a deficit that's going to be difficult to meet looking further into the future. Some of the bigger mines in Chile, they're ramping up production. That takes us a few years forward, but looking further out, there's not much out there that's going to kind of fill the gap. And if you consider it takes plus $1 billion, $2 billion to develop a large porphyry copper deposit, we've got in the order of, I'd guess, 25 deposits that are defined right now that are averaging 0.2 grams gold, 0.3% copper. Those are marginal at best and really economic, and no major is going to put the risk, the billions of dollars to build those at those sorts of grades. So we need new, higher grade, higher margin discoveries. Same thing for zinc. What we show here is the estimated replacement rate versus mine production, and there's a severe shortage going out into the future as well. So looking at all metals, same problem. You can see uranium, lead, zinc, nickel, copper, gold. Discoveries by commodity are down.
What about silver?
Silver as well. Good point. All right, so that's been my pitch for a few years now. And just a couple of weeks ago, CPM Group put out a chart and a little dialogue to go with it that says gold reserves are at an all-time high. And this sort of struck me as, I'd better check into this. Have I been bullshitting you all these years? So I got hold of CPM. Where'd they get the data? They got the data from the USGS, U.S. Geologic Survey. I got hold of the U.S. Geologic Survey and was told, the different fellows that run the different data for the different countries. I contacted the Canadian fella, and he said they just pull it from company reports. The U.S. guy doesn't know where the data came from, and the Mexican guy never got back to me. And I'm still waiting to hear about this. But what I've did manage to come up with is just last night, a list of the projects that are in the 2014 database. And although all I got was for the US, but here are the list of bigger projects that I'm aware of in North America that I don't think work, that are I suspect, are the reason we show those global reserves, plenty of global reserves. And you can take Donlin, Galore, Pebble, Highcroft, KSM Seabridges, Livengood, Gold Mining Inc., First Mining Inc. They've got various deposits marginal to uneconomic. Chesapeake, Roja-Montana, and Pascua-Lama. Those are all in the reserve carry. That's 255 million ounces that I think are probably in the U.S. database that are not economic. And by and large, probably never will be, at least in my lifetime. So I'm still working on this, and once I get it all together, it'll be in the newsletter. I'll put it out. And you're welcome to it if you get hold of me. But I guess the point being here, no, we do not have enough gold deposits sitting out there to replace what's being produced. And the majors are recognizing this. I think Kai's going to come up next and talk about where the money's coming from. But certainly retail investors, funds, institutions, they're not putting much money in. But what I've seen over the past 2 years is the mining companies are putting money into the junior sector now through private placements or joint ventures. And that, again, that points to the fact that these guys recognize further out they don't have the reserves. Their exploration team, which has been decimated, isn't large enough, and so they're selectively picking smart people in smart places that have a chance of finding what they need to replace what they're mining. And these are some of the companies that have done the either invested or directly or via joint venture. A few of the microcap junior explorers that I own that are receiving money from the majors. And they do this because it's much easier for Barrick to get into, for instance, Colombia by funding a group that's active there, knows the politics, knows the politicians, knows the people, knows the scene, than to set up their own company. Because for Barrick to go into, or Newmont to go into Colombia, for instance, they've got to do the whole safety thing, they've got to ship their people down there, they've got the rules and regulations that restrict them from doing what needs to be done. Much more efficient to use a junior company active in an area that does that. So it's cheaper, it's quicker, and it's better for them. And if something gets found, they can afford to buy whatever they find, the part they don't own. So the odds of finding an actual deposit of any prospect turning into a discovery are in the order of 1 in 1,000. That was a study done by Newmont maybe 12 years ago. That figure ignores any due diligence. That's just X number of prospects in 1,500 companies. This is the odds, but you can improve those significantly with a bit of due diligence, and getting into the screening out projects that just aren't going to work. And I estimate that for every 2.5 gram deposit, the Earth made maybe 10 1-gram deposits. The problem is, most of the 1-gram deposits sitting at surface have been found. So now we've got to look deeper, undercover, in more difficult areas to find these higher grade 2.5 gram deposits, which will be economic if we find them. Unfortunately, for every, you don't know if it's a 1 gram deposit or a 2.5 gram deposit until you do the drilling and the work. So you're going to find 10 sub-economic deposits for every 1 economic deposit you find. That's because they're deeper, higher drilling cost takes more time. There's usually more metallurgical issues associated with that. Your strip ratio goes up. Waste, you got to put the waste somewhere if it's an open pit. Water, there's either too much water or not enough water. You're disturbing a much larger area, much more complicated permitting process, higher capex. All those things factor into why I don't think we're going to find enough deposits to keep up with production. And something I've always got in the back of my mind when I'm looking at a junior company is, all right, so how much is it going to cost to disprove this concept or this deposit? And any junior should have an answer to that right off the top of their head. Like, we're going to spend X. If this isn't there, we're gone. I'd say 10% of the companies actually do that. Let's look at why I'm here, why I invest in these. This is a discovery made by Reservoir Minerals. And you can see back pre-discovery, this is a company that did a joint venture, was exploring in Serbia, brought in Freeport as their partner, funded all the exploration. They ended up with 25% of the Timok discovery. This thing started out in the order of, when the first drill hole hit, it jumped from 35 cents to about 85 cents. And you can see how it's gone from that period. It was eventually bought out by Nevsun at $9 a share. That's over 1,200% gain for 25% of the discovery. So this is the good thing. This is what a real discovery looks like, and what they're worth, and what are major mining companies willing to pay for these things, because they're so rare. Let's look at one that may be a discovery or may not be. We don't know yet. This is Evrim Resources, another one I own. They've been doing a number of joint ventures with different companies. They stumbled across this project, Cual, up in Jalisco, did some initial trenching, got some fantastic surface results that average in the order of almost 2 grams over a 200 by 200 meter area. This is at surface. Went and looked at it. It's got a shot. We don't know the depth. It hasn't been drilled yet, but you can see what's happened just with surface results. This thing's gone from, 30 cents to, right now it's about $1.30. If drilling pans out, this is worth a lot more than this. If it doesn't, it's the way it goes. But it's really important to understand when you got this, it's really important to understand what exactly is it they're looking for. What does this deposit, what will this look like if they're successful? What will the cost behind it be? And those sorts of things. So you can evaluate these things properly. Because your competition is the major mining company. That's who, in my view, I want to sell to. I'd rather not try and sell to the greater fool theory, because usually that's me. All right. This is sort of a general chart. I think you're all well aware of it. It's heavily weighted to oil, but I think overall we are at a very low point in the commodity cycle. So in my view, the timing is pretty good to be selectively getting into this sector. one more chart. This is something that kind of goes through what generally happens in the junior exploration space, where your company's looking for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. They start to get some success. Evrim, the one I showed you, is halfway up that chart now. And more often than not, after a while, the reality comes out. Either the metallurgy's wrong, the drilling doesn't work, something doesn't work, and these things crash. But in our newsletter, and personally, we've made as much money running up that ramp and getting out before the peak just by understanding what's going wrong than following it all the way to the end. I mean, ideally, you want to get out when a major buys it, but you can make good money running up that ramp if you do, you understand what it's going to take to make it or break it. All right, so that's us. That's me on top, obviously, and Joe Mazumdar, who's another economic geologist, analyst. He works with me on the newsletter. In fact, he does most of the work there now. I'm doing much more consulting with funds and such. You can get hold of me that way, though. The website has plenty of information. You're welcome to get a hold of me while I'm here. I'll finish with this. I think now is the time to be looking and getting into these junior mining stocks for the reasons I gave just now. So that's the end of my talk. Kai's coming up next. I appreciate your time. I'll be around the show, and my website's explorationinsights.com. Thank you.